Hello, my bariatric care friends. I'm so excited about this episode of the podcast because I have not only a wonderful guest, but a good friend who's joining us tonight. And most of you are probably familiar with Kelley Gunter. Hi, Kelley.
Hi, happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a while, huh?
It has been too long.
Yes, yes. Well, I first met Kelley because of her book, which, if you haven't read Kelley's book, you've got to get it. You got it, Andy?
I do. It's You have such a pretty face.
I love the title, and that's what I think made me pick up that book because almost every patient tells me that's what they've been told at some point in their life. So I'm
Mhm.
gathering that you heard that a time or two.
A time or two, yes. And it was so frustrating and just so hurtful because it's not a compliment, even if people think it is. It's not motivational, it's not inspirational. All it does is torpedo a heart that's already hurting. And because the unsaid part of that sentence is, too bad about your body, you know?
Exactly.
So I had made up my mind I'm going to find a way to lose the weight. And when I do, I'm going to write my book and tell my story. And the title is has to be You Have Such a Pretty Face. So,
And if you haven't read the book, I fell in love with Kelley and I hadn't met her. And then we met shortly after that
mhm.
and had an instant bond and have remained friends for several years now. But the book is
Yes.
funny. It's incredibly well written. It's it's just there's so much. Kelly's got so much personality. You've got so much personality, and your anecdotes are so funny, and yet they're so serious at the same time. So there's a lot of wisdom in that book, and I'll never forget your mom and your nanny, and because they've taught you great things in life. So very briefly, share your weight loss journey for people who aren't familiar.
Yeah, so I wasn't morbidly obese in high school, but I was the big girl for sure. And by the time I got into college and graduated college, I was over 300 pounds, eventually getting as high as 391 pounds. And so eventually in 2002, I decided to have weight loss surgery. And when I had that surgery, I lost 243 pounds in 15 months, I believe. And, um, and I've been able to keep that off now for 22 years. That I think the point and a big point of my book is that I lost the weight, I had the extra skin removed, but what I didn't do was heal the parts inside of me that caused me to use food as comfort in the first place. So, having been a victim of childhood sexual abuse, I had never disclosed that abuse or had any type of healing for it. And so, unfortunately, when I could never eat anymore, after weight loss surgery, then I developed cross addiction after cross addiction after cross addiction until I finally pretty much destroyed my entire life and went into treatment. And since then, that's when I wrote my book and shared my story. And so I think, whatever our reasons are, whatever reasons that we reach for, whatever it is, whether it's food or whatever else someone might try to run to escape the pain that they're going through, we get band aids, and most of our band aids aren't effective. And so food was my band aid. And I ripped off that band aid when I had weight loss surgery. And so instead of healing the wound that was under that band aid, because I couldn't even acknowledge it at the time, and
Right.
I think it's important also to say, I'd been a therapist all those years. And so, in spite of knowing, okay, this kind of
Right.
trauma really affects people their whole life, I couldn't apply that to myself. So, that's how I ran from cross addiction to cross addiction. And so I think that, my story is a healing story, and we all have a story. Every one of us has something that we don't talk about at cocktail parties. And,
Right.
those are the things that we have to kind of dig through, sort out, so that we can ultimately get to the best place we can be and live our best lives, because there is peace after all of that. There's
That's
peace
right.
after all the
You
pain that we
said so much in that short amount of time. And I want to kind of pick it apart because I think there are so many things that people need to hear. Um, Primarily, you're a therapist and you were a therapist through all of that time. And the
Mhm,
fact that as a therapist, you had the head knowledge about these
mhm,
issues, you could see it in other people, but we have to protect ourselves. And so a lot of times we can't point the fingers in our direction because A, it's too painful. We
mhm.
might, not be ready to talk about it. And I want people to hear that because it's not something to shame yourself about or get angry with yourself about, like, oh, I should have, I could have, why didn't I do
Mhm,
this years ago? We do it when we're ready. We do it
mhm.
when we're capable. But the fact is, like Kelly just said, most of us, regardless of whether or not you have the disease of obesity, if you have the disease of addiction or if you have the disease of any of the addictions, or you're acting out in any kind of way with eating disorders or whatever it is, it's a sign that something's amiss on the inside and that the
Yeah,
head work is critical to this journey.
it's so important. And that's why the subtitle of my book is A Memoir of Trauma, Hope, and the Joy That Follows Survival. Because what happens is we end up letting the thing we run to escape our pain hurt us as much as what we were trying to run from in the first place.
Right.
And so, everybody has something that they don't necessarily want to talk about. And those are the things deep inside of us that cause us to run and that cause us to try to find something to numb those feelings that we have with it. Um and absolutely, when I watched your um Gain While You Lose videos. It was, you spoke in there about people who've suffered with whatever types of addiction and saying that you can't beat yourself up over what you did in the past to try to cope. And I think that's so important and crucial for people to hear and to remember that, it isn't about, oh, my path was littered with mistakes. So, I mean, so many different things. But like what will never work is you don't beat your own just hind end and then come out feeling great about yourself. It doesn't work that way. So beating
Right.
yourself up all the time isn't the answer. You have to be able to have compassion for what you've been through, how you survived, and figuring all of that out and coming together cohesively is what lets us move forward.
Absolutely. And this year in the bariatric care group, um, we are working on we're focusing on some important words. And the word of the year is accountability. Because when it comes to your physical and emotional health, it requires that you follow through with doing some things. Because all of the emotional work that both you and I have done over the years didn't happen by accident, right? We had to
Mhm.
show up to the therapy. We had to do, the things they gave us to think about between sessions. So accountability as both and we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to weave some things together in tonight's episode. The words that we're using for this month and the overarching word of accountability in terms of the gotta do'ems, which you're familiar with.
Mhm.
So your gotta do'ems as a bariatric patient, and we're really honing in on vitamins this month because that's
Mhm.
one of the things people overlook and don't do, even though it's relatively an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But also your job. So tell people what you do now for your job, because I want to kind of talk about all of these things in light of these words that we're going to go through. So what is it you do now as a job? And I want to highlight this because it's so critical and this can be a really hopeful piece of information for people.
Um, are you referring to the speaking, the writing, or my full-time W-2 job?
Your full-time job and the other ones as well. But what is your
Okay.
full-time job?
I am a clinical supervisor on the National Suicide Hotline. So, I started working there 3 years ago, and I was taking calls initially, and then I was promoted to a clinical supervisor. And, it's just we live in a world that is just full of people who are hurting and people who feel that they don't have any escape or that there's no way that things can ever get better. And especially with 988 being coming into existence in the last year or two. I mean, we had 988 in Oregon before it went nationwide. We had it out there for a year.
Can you
So
explain what 988 is?
oh, yes. Okay, so 988 is just basically what you can call 988, you can text 988, you can get online and chat 988, and it basically is like the mental health hotline. And but it takes you to the suicide hotline, and you don't have to be suicidal to call. I mean, obviously people have crises and they don't want to necessarily maybe end their lives, but if we can get in there and you can find someone to talk to that you feel safe, that they necessarily aren't the people, it's not your sister or your best friend or whoever, and you can say the things that are that you maybe won't say to the people that you then have eye to eye contact with the next day. It helps people navigate through some of those dark, really difficult times. We also, I mean, one of the lines we take as well is a drug and alcohol hotline. I mean, so we take a lot of different lines, and there's just so much help available for people. And there are people waiting. It's 24/7. There's never a time that we're closed. And, to know that there are options, there are people you can talk to, and those people a want to help you, and B have the knowledge to be able to give you resources and different ideas and suggestions of things to do, and most importantly can listen. And so many people don't have somebody that they feel um, can sit with them in that darkness. That's what I kind of say.
Right.
I'm willing to sit with you in the darkness.
Oh, I love that. And with the people who have suffered from the disease of obesity, it is suffering. It is
It is.
emotionally torturous at times, and it
Mhm.
feels hopeless at times. And
Mhm.
after surgery, there's a lot of addiction hopping. And so, one of the things I want people to take away from this is let other people know about 988, calling
Mhm.
or texting, because there's no need to be alone.
Mhm.
People feel helpless and hopeless and alone sometimes, but this is a safe place to go. So, first of all, I just wanted to make that information
Yeah.
available to people. But
Mhm.
secondly, as a human being,
Mhm.
tell us about your other endeavors as well. You write
Oh,
and you
yes,
speak, right?
I'm finishing my second memoir now, The Homecoming Queen of Crazy Town. So, I introduce her and you have such a pretty face. And so I'm finishing that. That will be out this year. And then I speak. Yes, I love to speak and go out and just spread that light, because the one thing I try to always say to people is that I know what that darkness feels like. And if you feel like you're trapped in that darkness, I promise if you look around, you'll see my footprints, because I've been there. And if I can get out and find my way out, not only do I feel a responsibility to try to shine some light to help other people get out as well, but you can get out too. So in the darkness, a lot of things that are irrational and that you would never think about or even consider seem like, oh, that's probably a good idea. That's a good
Right.
solution to my pain, because the darkness is a liar. And so when we're in that moment, it's important to be able to say, I don't make the best decisions or have the best thoughts when I'm trapped in this place of suffering that feels like it's endless. And so I think that's why I speak. That's why my very favorite thing to do is speak, is to be able to say, there's pain and there's suffering, but the bridge that connects them or gets you out of them. So there's pain and there's peace, but the bridge of
Right.
healing gets you to the peace. But we have to be courageous enough to walk it.
That's right. So at the end of the podcast, we'll give out your information so that if people want you to come and speak, whether
Mhm.
it's about your bariatric surgery process or the
Mhm.
words we're going to talk about tonight,
Mhm.
or, the hopelessness and the dark places, I've heard you speak. You're beyond brilliant. So,
Thank
and
you.
great YouTube stuff and great online stuff. So follow Kelley. But I want to talk about you as a person who has been in a dark, dark place at times, but
Mhm.
also is a person who is thriving, keeping your weight off for 22 years after having surgery.
Mhm.
And in your professional life, in your job, your full-time job, and also your
Mhm.
writing and your speaking, accountability, which is our word of the year for bariatric care, is necessary in all of these areas of your life. And I
Mhm.
think that people feel like they have difficulty in being accountable to
Mhm.
themselves
Mhm.
primarily. So, where would how would you say, listen, people are being accountable in their lives in so many ways that they're not giving themselves credit for, right? If they've
Mhm.
got a
Mhm.
job, if they've got kids, if they're taking care of a parent, they're being accountable in a lot of ways. But how would
Mhm.
you encourage them? Because you were a person who was almost 400 pounds, who
Mhm.
has now kept her weight off for 22 years. So there's been some accountability to being a person who does what a person who wants to keep their weight off has to do. So how did you
Mhm.
develop the accountability to the gotta do's and the things you're supposed to do? Just like you do with your work and your speaking passions.
Right. I think well, I mean, I know we didn't like this wasn't kind of what we were kind of focusing on, but it's just true. For me, one of the things that I had to do before I could truly become accountable and take responsibility for everything in my life is I had to grieve all the things that, from the trauma I had experienced as a child. And so, and I think that people get caught up because trauma is like someone came into your house and completely destroyed it and made a mess, but you're the one who has to clean it up. And so a lot of people, and Connie, I know you know the stats, people who have weight loss surgery, it's a very high percentage have been sexually abused. I think
Sure.
it's above 70, isn't it? Isn't it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, there are various statistics, but
Okay. Right. But I
it's a
know
lot.
it's yeah. And so, but people can get trapped in it's a difficult situation because people can get trapped in the kind of a victim mentality. And
Right.
and then a victim mentality prevents us from taking accountability. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
Love that. Say
You
that
know,
again. A victim
yeah,
mentality prevents us
can
from being accountable.
yes, yeah. And I mean, we a lot of us have been victims. And
Sure. As a
but you
child.
don't right, you don't wanna live in that, and it's easy to
Right.
get caught up in that. And for me personally, what I had to do was grieve the childhood I never had, and
Mm,
that was because I presented to the world that everything was okay. And
mhm.
so being able to and I think that's where it gets tricky when it comes to, healing and accountability, especially in recovery, is that they focus on two very different core principles. Recovery says take accountability, take responsibility. Being a victim of sexual abuse says nothing was your fault. And so to have to be able to bring those two together and figure out a way to let them both exist is the only way that we can truly heal, because people will say push down the oh, everything was my fault, and all the mistakes I made in the guise of addiction, all of that was my fault. But you're still allowed to grieve the people that you feel betrayed you if they left your life, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
those are two different things. How do I take accountability? But I'm also suffering because I lost a lot of people I loved, and that feels like betrayal. So you're
Right.
walking two very different sides of a street. One says
Right.
take accountability, and one says it wasn't your fault. And to heal both to come together is you have to acknowledge both. So you
Right.
have to be able to grieve whatever it was that you've been through, however you've been victimized, or whatever you lost, or whoever hurt
Right.
you, or whatever happened.
Right.
And then you have to be able to say, even with all that happened, I still have to own the behaviors that I had. And whether that is a behavior that caused you to weigh 400 pounds like me, just maybe using the food as comfort, whatever it was. I mean, you still have to be able to say, it wasn't anything I've gone through as a child wasn't my fault, but the behaviors I have as an adult, I have to take responsibility for. And one
Right.
of those is, am I going to eat the way that I should? I can tell you, Connie, I know we've talked about this a lot in my psychological, here I was a licensed therapist and I was sitting there with the psychologist and he said, is there any sexual abuse in your background? No. I knew what he
Mhm.
was looking for when he said, do you, the questions, do you think that losing weight, it's not going to fix your life? I said, oh, I know that, but I thought it would. I
Right.
honestly
Right.
believe if I could just be thin, then I'll be able to do all these things. I'll look a certain way, I'll be more active, blah, blah, blah. I'll be accepted by society. And
Right.
so I thought, yes, it will change my life, even though I sat there and said, it won't. Like, I realize
Yeah.
it won't change my life.
Yeah.
And it does change your life in a lot of ways. But,
Sure.
like, whatever you were dealing with, I mean, if you're married to an asshole, he's still going to be an asshole. I
Right.
mean, like, losing weight isn't the magic eraser for all of
Right.
your life's problems. And so to be able to um, come into it and say, I can't, like, I have to own what I do and what I don't do. I have
Right.
to when it comes to my
Across the
health.
board. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
When it comes to your
Right,
health, when it comes to your
right.
relationship with your son, when it comes to relationship with your friends, when it comes to the relationship with your supervisor, when it comes to relationship with your supervisees, and I think that's a
Mhm.
really important message. So, let me see if I can sum up what you're saying a little bit. That a
Yeah.
lot of people suffered some kind of trauma as children, and for
Mhm.
that, they were not accountable. They're not
Mhm.
responsible for that.
Right,
And
right.
with the disease of obesity, there are certain aspects of the disease that people are not accountable for.
Mhm.
Genetics and culture that you were raised in and whatever
Mhm.
they brought into
Mhm.
the home you were eating, all those things. But as an adult, you are no longer a victim and you have to take accountability for the gotta
Mhm.
do's, the behaviors that result in weight maintenance, correct?
Mhm. Right. Once you have weight loss surgery, then you have to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to do all the things that I know I need to do? Am I going to eat right? Am I going to exercise? Am I going to be accountable? Or was this just something that I was, I mean, I think the thing is, if, especially with the surgeries that are so popular now, gaining the weight back is so easy to happen. And
Absolutely.
I have people who contact me for life coaching who say, I know I'm not eating right. I eat ice cream every day. I eat this, I do that, but can you help me? Well, yeah, I can. I can do my best, but you already know that what you're doing is causing the weight gain. And so, what we have to talk about is, why aren't you changing that?
Right.
What's preventing you from change? And I know it's not easy. I'm the first one to know it isn't easy. And but you have to figure out, why am I reaching for this?
And I
Because
think you said earlier that a lot of times that victim mentality prevents
Mhm.
you from being accountable because,
Yes.
"Oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. This is so hard. This is so hard. Oh my god, it's so hard."
Mhm.
Yes. Yes, it is. But what are you gonna do about it,
Mhm.
right?
Right, right.
Have there's no way there's no way to maintain that weight loss without being accountable, without being
Mhm.
consistent, without consistently eating the healthy foods, without consistently moving your body, without consistently taking your vitamins, without consistently drinking the water, without consistently saying no to
Mhm.
yourself in some regards.
Right, right. And being able to say, what is the fuel behind this for me?
Right.
Because, I've done this, I've gone through the surgery, I've lost this weight. And what what makes me just decide, well, I'm just gonna go right back and do, what I was gonna do before. I mean, and eat the same way and whatever it is. I mean, figuring that out and then, because nobody's going to force you to get your life together, and it is hard, it's painful, and it's difficult to figure it all out, but that's how you get there. That's why I said walking that bridge of healing.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage, but you know, Connie, one of the things I say when I speak is when I first start after I wrote my book and I would look for hashtags to use, and so on Instagram I would put hashtag victim because I wanted to connect with other victims. But then after enough time, I said, I'm not a victim anymore. Like I'm a survivor. So I upgraded my hashtag
Right.
to survivor. And now I am like, yes, I'm a survivor, but like I'm a weapon. I'm a weapon against the darkness that tried to destroy me. I refuse to live in that mentality and to take
Right.
whatever leftovers life wants to give me. I'm not going to do that. And so being able to um, sit there and say, we're not meant to heal forever. We're just not supposed to be in that place forever. We're supposed
Mhm,
to move on from it. We're not supposed to
mhm,
exist in I'm forever healing from something. Will there
mhm.
always be pain around some things that happen to us? Yes. But existing in it is not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to
Right.
be able to move forward and really live our best lives.
Yeah. So I love that you're saying this because I went on a little rant in the bariatric care room the other day about, come on, you guys, this is hard. Granted, it's hard. But if you're going to stay mired in the mentality that this is hard, or if you're going to
Mhm.
stay, like you're talking about, in that darkness of what happened to you in the past,
Mhm.
it's going to be very difficult to move forward and be persistent. Persistent means being consistent with the behaviors, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're feeling pulled back to that. But poor me. No, you got to
Mhm.
do it anyway. And like you said, and like Mel Robbins says, nobody's coming.
Right.
Nobody's going to come and do this for you.
Right. And when you choose to focus just on your past, it's almost like you become the assassin of your future.
Oh, yeah,
You know.
brilliantly stated. In other words, self-sabotaging
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
is a you deal. It's a you thing.
Right.
It's not
Right. And
about
I
what
know.
happened to you in the past. It's not about those people and that person and this person and how dare
Mhm.
they and how could they and no.
Right.
It's about
Right.
taking your own bull by their own horns.
Right. Because at least for people who experience childhood trauma, and like I know that's another whole discussion, but it does change your brain. But the thing is, so does healing. So you have
Yes.
pathways that were developed, and you have survival skills you used in your childhood. But healing allows you to convert them into coping skills rather than unhealthy survival skills, and to be able to that self sabotage that you talked about, like that's part of that. I just expect the worst. Nothing ever goes right for me. Well, if that's what you're saying over your life, that's what you're going to get.
That's right.
So you have to be able to believe in yourself maybe when no one else does, or when you feel like no one else does,
Right.
and to be able to say this is not going to be my life. I can
Right.
figure it out. I mean, I promise you, Connie, I like have been through it. And so I'm not trying to minimize anything anybody's going through, but eventually that voice inside of you has to say, I'm going to figure this out.
That's
And
right.
because I'm going to create the life I desire, and
That's
because no one's going to hand it to you, like
right.
it's not coming. You can't order it from Amazon.
Exactly. You can't, what is it? What are those DoorDash? You can't DoorDash somebody fix me, right? And
Right.
2 of our other
Right.
words this month are reliable and trust. And it's
Mhm.
and these are things you have to develop for yourself. I have to learn to
Mhm.
rely on myself because
Mhm.
nobody's coming. I have
Right.
to rely on the fact that if this is going to happen, if I'm going to do these things, it's going to have to come from me. Yes, I need the support of other people for sure,
Mhm.
but I have to develop this trust in myself that, you know what? So I'm having a bad day. I'm still going to trust myself to do what needs to be done, whether it's for my job or my children or my
Mhm.
mental health or my physical health.
Right. Because nobody else is going to put you first. You're the only one who can. What we put in our bodies, what we do to our bodies, whether we decide to exercise or get stronger or figure it out. It's like if you have a car, are you going to just not put oil in it? Because it's not going to run. It's not going to perform. Eventually, it's going to blow up if you don't put oil in the car. Well, what you put in your body matters too. And
Do you know,
say
I
what?
heard this great analogy. You know how much I love Andy Stanley.
Mhm,
I was listening to a podcast of his the other day, and he said, if when you turned 16, you got a car and you knew that this was the only car you would ever have for as long as you lived, you would
mhm.
take good care of that car. You would make
Yeah.
sure the oil got changed. You would make sure the tires got rotated. You were
Mhm.
sure whatever things have to happen to a car happened. But we don't treat our bodies that way either. This is the only one we get in
Right,
this
right.
lifetime.
It's not a dress rehearsal, right? I mean, but I think the thing is, I can speak for me 100%. I didn't value myself or my body because that worth had been crushed in my childhood. So, digging into that, really figuring it out, and starting that healing process and keeping up with it is what allowed me to realize, hey,
Yeah,
it's my temple.
right,
It's my temple and I have to take care of it.
right. And
And
surgery didn't get you there. It was the
no.
hard work and recognizing
Mhm. Mhm.
the truth of your life, grieving what you had to grieve, recognizing that staying in that mindset would keep you sick, and choosing to develop a new mindset and putting the work into it, consistent, persistent, reliably doing so.
And let me just say, for anybody who's listening who, hasn't heard me speak or be on your show before or whatever, um, it was not a simple process. And this is why I speak. I destroyed myself first. With all of my cross addictions, I destroyed my life. I lost everything, everybody. And so I speak in the hopes that someone else doesn't do that to their life, that they can see what went on with mine. And I really had no choice. No choice. The one good thing about rock bottom is the only place to go is up. And so I had to figure it out. I could have said, oh well, like I ruined everything. This is just my life. Look what happened. I was a victim. And so now I couldn't help what happened as a child. And I have these bad behaviors and addictions. And so I guess that's just my life. And I could have folded up my tent and just been, okay with that. But eventually, I had to be able to say, no, no, like I'm still that same person who is able to take all of that pain and fuel it into something positive. And so, in no way am I saying that it's simple. Oh, just get it together and eat right and exercise. If it was that simple, everybody would do it. But
Right.
figuring it all out and then taking and it is hard. It is hard to say whatever hurt you in life that has gotten to a place that you used food as comfort, whatever that was. It's hard to say, well, yes, that happened and that was unfair and it really was painful, but I have to take responsibility for my actions as an adult and for what I do going forward.
Yeah.
So, and being able to have that kind of hard look in the mirror and say, you know, my worst enemy is staring back at me.
Yes. Yeah. And choosing not to be that anymore. Choosing
Right.
not to be your enemy, but to be your advocate with
Right.
compassion, with love, with
Mhm.
determination.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and I did a presentation a few months back, Connie, and I was talking about how do we kind of jumpstart hope in our life when we've been in a really dark place, when we've made mistakes, when we don't know like how are we going to move forward. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way when they've experienced regain or whatever, and or when weight loss surgery didn't turn out to go the way they hoped it would. And so for me, I said the way we jumpstart hope is we have to perform CPR on it. And for me, this is a Kelley Gunter original, so you can make fun of it if you want
This
to.
is
But
good. I love it.
I said the CPR stands for the C is for compassion. We have to be able to look at what we've been through
Love
and have
it.
self compassion. We have to be able to do that. Then the P, we have to have the persistence, like that you're talking about. We
That's very
have to like say, okay, I've fallen 1,000 times, but I'm not going to quit trying. And then the R is the resiliency. We have
Oh,
to
love
just,
it.
yeah, we just have to be able to say, you know, I'm going to make it regardless. I mean, if you think of a tulip and you drop a tulip in the ground, that bulb is surrounded in dirt and darkness. And I'm sure that bulb is thinking, I'm buried. Are you buried or are you planted? Because darkness feels the
Oh,
same for a while, right?
woman, you
And
are one brilliant
so persistence
woman.
says, let me grow. And resiliency says, I'm going to grow whether you water me or not. So we have to have, that's how I say we jumpstart hope. We have to look back at everything and give ourselves compassion. We did the best we could. Then we have to be willing to just keep trying and never give up.
I
And
love
we, the persistence of that. And then the resiliency, like, I'm not staying down. Like, this is not how my story ends.
that is one of the Kelley Gunter originals, and I love that. That is brilliant, and that's why people need to read your book because there are so many other Kelley Gunter originals in there. So, I wanna switch all of this talk to because we're really taking a deep dive on vitamins. You know, Laura
Mhm,
Preston and I did a, talk about vitamins a couple episodes ago, and then last week,
mhm,
we had a true scientist, Heather Mackey. She's a registered dietitian and she is an expert on nutrition and vitamins. So we
mhm.
got the science. And so I wanted to talk to you not only because you have brilliance in all of these arenas, but because I know that your surgery was 22 years ago. And
Mhm.
when it comes to bariatric vitamins, what was the state of the nation back when you had your or your surgery when it came to vitamins? What'd they tell you?
Well, back when I had my surgery, they told me you will have to be on vitamins for the rest of your life. And, that's one of the things, I thought, oh, big deal. No, of course, that's simple. I'll be on vitamins for the rest of my life. Let me get back into great shape. Let me lose all this weight. I don't mind taking a vitamin for the rest of my life. It seemed like an easy enough thing, right? And so, but eventually I got lax on that. And I didn't keep up with taking the vitamins. I got on with my life. I did lots of things, and this hasn't even been that long ago. I was at your house when it happened. So how
Yes.
many years ago was that? That
I
was
don't know,
like
probably 7, 8? No,
maybe
wait. No,
okay,
no, no, no. Because 'cause I've
5 or
only been
6
in the house for
maybe.
6 years. So 5 or 6.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden I had um like some Bell's palsy stuff going on, and I didn't even notice it at first. And so long story short, I just had a lot of issues from like my levels, my blood levels, everything in me was all just out of whack. It caused vision issues. I mean, I've always been anemic ever since I had weight loss surgery. So
Wow.
my body doesn't absorb the prescription iron. I have to get iron infusions regularly. But
You had the
other than
dual
that,
switch.
right, right, I had to switch. So, but other than that, everything was off. I mean, everything was off. And I believe he was a hematologist who was treating me. He said, why did you ever stop taking these vitamins? And, I had no answer. I mean, because I thought I didn't need them anymore. I mean, I did
Right.
not, I had no good answer to give. I just, I said, well, I thought I was okay. Like I didn't. And I think that's the thing. You can go off the vitamins and you can think, okay, everything is okay, look, but you have a kind of I don't know if this is medically accurate, but it took several months after I hadn't been taking them for the issues to show up. So I don't know if I had a buildup of what was in there, but it's not like overnight you just notice it. But I
Mhm.
had, issues with my eyes. My corneas got scratched. I mean, I had to put clear band-aids on my eyeballs. I had to go to the eye doctor every morning to have that
Oh
done. I
my
had so many
gosh.
issues with my teeth. I've had 2 hip replacements, because
Oh, back it up. Let's do these things one at a time. So do you
right.
think that Bell's palsy was related to vitamin deficiencies?
I mean, they told me it was.
Okay. Oh my
Mhm,
gosh, that's terrifying, but
mhm,
it
mhm.
remitted.
Yeah, right. And
inside,
I mean,
right?
the eyes were definitely the an issue with that. And I can't draw the correlation. I just
Right,
know,
right.
it all happened at the same time. And
Well,
then
the teeth, yeah.
teeth issues with the calcium and all of that. I mean, just and I don't know. I don't know that the hip replacements were anything to do with my vitamins because that's an arthritis thing and I had bone on bone. So, but I don't know. I mean, I don't
It
know.
couldn't have helped not taking the vitamins,
Right.
right?
But I can tell you for sure, my hair was a nightmare, it because of the vitamins. Definitely the vitamins affect the teeth, with everything that went on that caused the Bell's palsy issue, which took about 2 or 3 months to
Remit.
kind of work its way out. And
Right.
so there was a lot. There was a lot that went wrong. And, the doctor's just looking at me and saying, why did you ever stop taking everything you were supposed to take? And
Right.
I, I was lazy. I didn't do it. I didn't think it mattered anymore. And so 100%, we have to, we get the result we want, and then we think we don't have to keep doing like what we did to be healthy,
It's
to
kind of an
maintain it.
interesting analogy if you think about it, because at the very beginning, you were talking about when you saw the psychologist for your psych eval, right? And you're
Mm,
like, in your mind, you're like, "Of course, I'm gonna tell the guy, no, this isn't gonna solve everything, and I'm gonna"
right.
you know, "but I'm hoping that it will."
Mm,
Right? I'm thinking it's gonna, I just need to get this weight off and all will be well.
right.
And then you transfer that mentality like, "I'm good. It's all good.
Mhm,
I don't need these vitamins anymore."
mhm. Right. I mean, I just
That's a
thought, come on, it's long enough. Like, I probably am fine,
yes.
and
So the message to the newbies is
take your vitamins. Like, do yourself the favor. I mean, sometimes we have so much going on. Even if you're not eating correctly, even if you're not exercising like you want, take your vitamins. Like, do something
yes.
that you can say, I'm doing this. Give yourself
Yeah,
credit for what you are doing right. And then one by one, tackle the other things because
right,
no one can just be like, oh, let me switch everything. I'm going to do everything,
right.
exactly right. Because it's too much. I mean,
Right.
we
You
have
never
to.
have to do it anything
Right.
exactly right. It's about the persistence. It's about the
Mhm.
reliability. It's about learning to trust yourself that you're going to put
Mhm.
forth effort every day to do your best, given what's going on in the day. Because
Yeah.
every day's got stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. And really, and I think this is kind of the whole point of your gain while you lose. Um, Figuring out your why. You know, Otherwise, for me, I would have one addiction, work that one out, jump to another one. I mean, because I wasn't working on the core of what it was, and I think one way to explain that is like we're all like little seedlings that plant a little tree in the ground and we get our nutrients and water from our roots. And so my roots as a child had a lot of pain and poison in them. And that was eventually displayed in my tree in the branches of morbid obesity. So weight loss
And
surgery,
your other behaviors, the addictions
right?
and the
Well,
right.
that's what I was going to say. Weight loss surgery allowed me to chop off the branches of morbid obesity, but my
Uh,
roots were still my roots. So I grew new branches that were equally as destructive and in the forms of varying
wow.
addictions. So till we get down there and fix those roots, it will be displayed in our branches.
That is a beautiful analogy. Another beautiful analogy. And really, if you think about that, it's like we can't just have the surgery and think everything's going to be fine because everything
Mhm.
wasn't fine before the surgery. So we
Right.
have to be courageous. We have
Yes.
to be
And it's
courageous.
hard. It's
It is
hard. I mean, it isn't easy. It's a difficult process, and a lot of people are okay with, I'd rather numb it than pull it apart and dig through it.
yeah. And
And
does that make you
um,
sad?
yeah, it does. But I know with myself, no one could have pulled it out of me until I was ready to tell it. And but you can't help, I try not to have these thoughts, but how different could my life have been if I had spoken about it earlier and gotten the healing journey that I was able to eventually walk started sooner. Um, but that's where that sea of compassion comes in, being able to
Right.
say, for whatever reason, it wasn't
Right.
the time for me to do that. But
That's
being able to figure out our why is really important because,
what do you mean
like,
when you say that? Your why for what?
what
Creating the
were you
roots?
using? Whatever you're using to run from, why? I was using food as comfort. Why? Because it's all I had when surviving a childhood of sexual abuse. But then when I
Okay.
could never eat anymore, I went to different things because I never dealt with the sexual abuse. And so there's a why, you know.
Okay. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, when they say, "What's your why?" they're thinking, "What's my why for having surgery? I want to lose
Right.
weight. I want to be off the medicines. I want to hang out with my grandkids. I want to live longer." But you're
Mhm.
using this as in, what's the reason behind my ongoing use of these of food, which was really causing me more
Mhm.
pain? What was driving that? What were
Mhm.
the reasons? So let me
Yeah.
tackle those, and clean out the root ball so that
Mhm.
what I grow on my branches is healthier.
Right, exactly, because otherwise it's going to be down there. I mean, my life is the perfect example of that. You're not,
Mhm.
until you clean up those roots, it will be displayed in your branches. And whether you talk about it or not, your behaviors will scream it. Even if those behaviors are, I continue to, like, I lose the weight, then I gain it all back, or whatever it is. I mean, and I'm not trying to dismiss that there are medical reasons why some people gain weight back and why it's harder
Certainly,
for other people.
certainly.
I get that. But I'm just saying that there's there's a reason in there for all of
Mhm.
us why,
Yeah,
whatever
right.
degree, and our behavior,
It's
people think, well, no one knew. I can say for me, my friends would say, oh, Kelley works hard, she plays hard. Well, that play hard was addiction,
yeah,
and so, but people will very often, especially people who love you, will just say, oh, that's just her,
yeah,
that's how
right.
she does. And but that's what I'm talking about. Your behaviors will scream it, even if no one else is saying,
It's so
you
funny
know.
because I often say, your behaviors give away how you feel about yourself on the inside.
Mhm,
And it sounds like
mhm,
that's what you're saying. And
a
that's
100.
why, I say to people, if you had surgery and you're not living according to what you were taught to do, if you're
Mhm,
not perfectly, but for the most part, treating your body
mhm,
well, taking the vitamins, eating the right foods, doing some exercise, what you're telling through your actions is, "I'm not worth it. I don't believe
mhm,
I'm worth it." And that
mhm.
may go back to that root ball of, there's a reason
Whatever
you
it
don't
is,
feel like you're worth it.
right. Doesn't have to be sexual abuse. I mean, there's infinite things that can scar us and harm us and make us feel a certain way
Right.
that we're not enough or whatever it is. And but
Absolutely.
figuring that out doesn't mean you have to, dig up
Yeah.
Freud and spend 50 years
Yeah.
in psychoanalysis. But like,
Right.
just kind of figuring out, why do I do the things I do?
I call it
I'm
cleaning out my emotional closet, because for
Mhm,
so many years, like, you and I both have worked really hard in therapy and learned that nobody's
mhm,
coming. We got to do it ourselves. We've sought professional
mhm,
help. We've sought
mhm,
peer help. We've done things and we continue to do things to remind ourselves that we're worth it and that our
mhm.
behavior will reflect that. Um, and I completely lost my train of thought, but it's
You
not the
said
surgery.
we've both been through therapy to
Oh,
figure
yeah,
it
yeah,
out.
yeah. And our histories are different, right?
Mhm, right.
And I remember when I was in treatment and I was all superior to my fellow treatment members, right? Because I'm thinking,
Mhm,
"My
mhm,
God, the things these
mhm.
people have been through.
Right.
Oh, I've never been through that."
Mhm,
But I minimized. I mean, I was like, "Oh, I'm better than them because I didn't have that kind of stuff." But when it came down to it, whether it was somebody who was being locked in a closet, beaten, sexually abused, or living in a chaotic environment like I did, where there was just constant tension and fear, it all boils down to the same thing, right? We
mhm,
feel it. the same on the inside, and then we try to numb ourselves in whatever way we can. So
Yeah.
whatever your past is, and there are people who have the disease of obesity and don't have a
Right.
traumatic past, but those
Right.
are fewer than the people who do. So it's
Right.
important that we look in the mirror, like you said, take that long, hard look. And if you're not taking your vitamins, that's just one example. Or if you're not doing your best on a daily basis to follow through with those gotta do's, then that's a sign that there's something you need to maybe do
Mhm.
emotionally.
Yeah, I completely agree because we all deserve to heal, you know, and
Yeah,
I think the other thing is people think trauma has to be some huge event and it doesn't. I typically, and I'm sure you're the same way, Connie, I can talk to somebody for 5 minutes and find trauma. Even people who say, I never had any trauma. Maybe you witnessed a car accident that was when you were 5. And I mean, trauma can be a lot of different things.
it
Hmm.
absolutely can. And I
Hmm.
really, you're familiar with the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Event Study,
Hmm.
and that is a really good indicator because there are things on there that you would think like, "Really, is that such a big deal?"
Hmm.
But it is, and they know that because these things are really, really well researched. So it would be in your best interest to look up Adverse Childhood Events
Hmm.
Study, and
And,
there's
I think, I was
and
going to
what?
say too, like, as adults, you might read it and say, "Oh, that wasn't a big deal. I went through that, but that wasn't a big deal." But you weren't an adult when you went through it. So
That's
when you
right.
read it as an adult, you think that wasn't that big of a deal. Look at what other people have been through. But you have to
Right.
remember if you experienced it as a child, and no
Yeah,
two people experience an event the same. Even identical twins experience trauma differently, even if it's the
absolutely.
exact same trauma. And so being able to just, and not try to dig into it to say, oh, am I some broken person, no, but just kind of trying to figure out what's the root of why I don't value myself enough to take good care of myself.
Exactly. I love that. We really have the same message, and I love that you are, getting yourself out there. You're doing life coaching, you're doing speaking, you gotta watch Kelly on social media. Kelly, you are a very brilliant human being and so dang
Oh,
fun.
thank you.
Yeah, I learn a
No,
lot from you every time I talk to you, and you've really studied all of this so, so, so much. And beyond that, you've done your own work, and that's what it takes.
and I think that's the thing. I think that we all owe it to ourselves. I mean, just to ourselves to find the place that we can find peace and not drag everybody through the swampland of our soul who comes into our life. You
Exactly.
know,
Renee Bynum, The Swampland of the
yes,
Soul. Shame.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's all
Yeah.
about the shame. It's
Yeah,
all
it
about
is. It is. It absolutely
yeah.
is. Um, and what you said a minute ago, and this is the last thing I want to kind of talk about, but so many people during pre-surgical evaluations, and I talk
Mhm,
about your past and I try to find out the history. And
mhm,
people will tell me, and this is mostly in relation to sexual abuse. They say,
mhm,
but it happened so long ago and it doesn't bother me at all. And I'm like,
mhm,
okay, but it does.
mhm,
It
mhm.
absolutely does. There's no way for it not
Right.
to interfere with how you
And
feel about yourself, as evidenced by how you treat yourself.
right. And even if you just take that one event, well, it happened a long time ago, you should get over it or whatever. People will tell you that, oh, that happened in your childhood. You should just let it go. And it's
Mm,
not, what is that, frozen? One doesn't just simply let it go. But I mean,
right.
understanding that that trauma in childhood causes your brain to form differently. And that as an adult, MRI scans show people's brains are different. People who experienced childhood trauma, people who
Most
didn't,
definitely.
and
Right.
the areas that are affected are consequential thinking, impulsivity, the
Right.
fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of those. I mean, and and that is so crucial because people think that doesn't have anything to do with weight loss. Consequential thinking, impulsivity, like, so okay, I'm going to eat this whole cheesecake right now because like in that impulsive moment there's impulsivity,
Right.
and then consequential thinking, there's no way
Not
this is going to
thinking
give
it
me what I
through.
want to be.
Right.
Yeah. and all those things can be improved, and healing does it. But that's why it's crucial to figure it out, because that impaired consequential thinking will get you.
It
Trust
will,
me, it will get
absolutely.
you.
It will.
And
Just like, and I'm gonna bring it back to vitamins again. Just like
yes.
not taking your vitamins, there will be consequences. Even though
Mhm.
you think, and I'm only bringing it back to vitamins because that's really kind of the gotta do and we're focusing on this month.
Yeah.
But there are consequences when you think,
Mhm.
oh, it's not that big of a deal. And that, in comparison to some of this other stuff, is minimal, although there are huge consequences physically, right? But
Mhm.
all of
Mhm.
these other things that you're talking about, the consequences are widespread and affect every area of your life.
Yes, I had a friend who had weight loss surgery and her potassium got too low. She ended up in a coma. Like, they didn't think she was going to make
Die.
it. She eventually, they were able to save her life and everything, but because her potassium got too low, and it was just, life threatening. So we
Yeah,
think that, though, like, you can't do anything if we don't keep our body with what it is essential to have to function. So,
right.
trying to put those things in there, and, giving yourself, just saying, you know what, if it's the only thing I do right today is I'm going to take these vitamins, we'll
That's
take
right.
it. It's a start,
We'll take it. It is a
and
start.
right.
So let me kind of tie all these things together. We started out by talking
Mhm.
about accountability and how you, as a
Mhm.
woman who's had weight loss surgery, who's had trauma in her life, who
Mhm.
has very healthy life today,
Mhm.
has um, accepted the fact that as a health if you want to be a healthy adult, you have to take the accountability to do the work and to do the daily things to maintain your weight loss,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in your job, there are things you have to do to be you have to show up on time. You have to be able to help, and guide your supervisees. You have to,
Mhm.
we are accountable in many ways in our lives, and that's transferable. But people
Mhm.
don't give themselves enough credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to say my life is going to be what I make it. A lot of people don't believe that statement. They don't, because they've kind of gone through enough that they think life just happens to me. And bringing yourself back to the fact that you can change it, and you can make it what you want it to be. Like, Connie, I'll share this when it comes to that you can change it. This is my mouse pad, and it came, like, I made this a long time ago, but it was my New Year's Eve post, and it just says she toasted herself and created the life she desired.
I
Like,
love that. I
that's what
love
we
that.
have to be able to do. We have to be
That's
able to
right.
say, I'm going to create what I want in my life, and then make the steps. What are the steps to get you there?
Exactly. You're gonna follow make your plan and follow the plan. Um, so lastly, so much good information in here, Kelly, and then I'm gonna let you give your contact information. Um, if you're not doing the gotta do's, friends, if you're listening to this and you're not doing what you were told to do when you went in to have bariatric surgery and you said, "Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes,
Mhm.
I'll do it." If you're
Mhm.
not doing it, that is an indicator that there are things you need to work through because you
Mhm.
are not treating yourself like a valuable human being who deserves the best life. So you're going to have to, if you want to grow beautiful things on your tree, you got to clean out the
Mhm.
roots,
Mhm.
give them some nurturing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Figure out why you're not taking care of you.
Yeah.
Why is that? And then in small ways start doing it.
Right. And get the help you need in whatever areas that happens to be.
Yeah.
So, how can people get in touch with you for speaking?
Oh, my website, kellygunter.com. There's a contact us on there for speaking, for life coaching.
Kelley,
Mhm.
Kelley, right?
Gunter, right.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, there's a contact us button on there, whether you want life coaching or whether if it's for a speaking event. Um, there's a couple different options on there. So they can find me there. My Instagram is at Gunter Kelley. It's my last name first. I'm on Facebook. Um, and so I try to respond to every message I get. And, that's how people can find me.
Excellent, excellent, and she is worth the find, my friends. And if you don't yet have her book, You Have Such a Pretty Face. It's on Amazon. It's on your
Yeah.
your website. So,
Yeah,
no,
it's
Jan,
on audiobooks. They can get it anywhere, really. Barnes and Noble, anywhere that they go, it's everywhere.
did you
So
record it? Did you record
I
it
did
yourself?
not. The publisher, Tantor Media, I could have, and that's one thing I wish I would have. A lot of people have said, I wish you would have done it.
Well, you
But
can do
they let me
Queen of Crazy
select
Town.
an actress. Oh, yes, yes, I will do the Homecoming Queen
Yes.
of Crazy Town for sure.
Awesome. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Anything else you want to add before we close up tonight?
I mean, just really that it doesn't matter if you failed 1,000 times, there's still another try. And
Right.
I failed at every diet I ever went on until the time I didn't,
Yep.
when weight loss surgery worked for me. And so
That's
I
right.
went through multiple decades of bad decisions and hard situations, a lot that were my own fault. And like you can get there, you can overcome all of that, you can
Yes.
heal, and you can find your best life.
And that's another really important message. You know, I've done it, you've done it, millions of other people have done it. We can all do it
Hmm.
when we decide it's time, when we're sick and tired of being
Yeah.
sick and tired, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to, you know, there's going to be pain, but pain can turn into purpose if you let it.
For sure. Turn your pain into purpose. It's a great thing to do. You help yourself and a lot of others at the same time.
Yeah.
So take your vitamins and avoid some of the consequences Kelly experienced: hair, eyes, teeth, maybe hips,
Mhm.
but Bell's palsy. There are
Oof.
so many consequences of not taking your vitamins. And just like pregnant women take prenatal vitamins, you are a bariatric patient. So please take a bariatric specific vitamin. And if you
Mhm.
want a discount, you can get a discount with ProCare vitamins by using the coupon code Connie Stapleton. So there's that. All right, Kelly, thank you so much. It is just
No, thank
always a
you.
pleasure. And I have just admired and watched you go through amazingly difficult things with unbelievable persistence because you believe
Well,
in you.
thank you. And a lot of that, was because I have amazing people like you in my corner. So,
You do have a lot
you've
of amazing
always
people in your
you've
life.
always spoken
Yeah,
life and, hope to me. And so I appreciate that just more
I
than you know.
appreciate it. Okay, my
Mhm.
friend, until next time. All right.
Okay, see you
And
soon.
remember,
Bye.
everybody, 988. For those of you who feel despair or know somebody who's feeling despair, let them know about 988.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Bye
you, Kelly.
bye.
Good night.